Okay, we're about to get started.
It makes me nervous.
It is 9 a.m. I would like to call to order the local agency formation meeting for August 16, 2023. I will now ask the commission clerk to do the roll call.
Good morning, Commissioners. Commissioner Baca,
Baca present.
Commissioner Bagley,
I'm here.
Commissioner Cox,
Present.
Commissioner Dennison, Commissioner Duper,
Present.
Commissioner Farrell. I thought I saw him.
He's here.
Okay. Commissioner Hagman, Commissioner Harvey,
Here.
Commissioner Kenley,
Here.
Commissioner Rao, Commissioner Warren.
Present.
Thank you.
As of today, Rick Dennison is the only one not attending that I'm aware of, and I'm assuming the rest of our members will show up later. If not, we'll make that part of the record. Don Roll does not attend when regular county members are in attendance. So we have regular county members in attendance. Now, I would like us to please join me in pledging the allegiance of the flag in the greatest nation in the world. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to read our campaign disclosure announcement. Anyone present at the hearing who is involved with any of the changes of organization to be considered and who has made a contribution of more than $250 in the past 12 months to any member of the commission will be asked to state for the record the commission member to whom the contribution has been made and the matter of consideration with which they were involved. We do have one form that is a request for speaking, and that is for our public comments, and we're going to start that right now.
Madam Chair, I think he's here for item number 5, so I think we'll just go ahead and pull item 5 from the consent.
Okay, but I have another one. We have a public comment.
Sorry,
Right.
my apologies.
Let's see, Jan, are you in the audience? There you are. Please come forward.
This may be repetitious to those of you who were here in July, but the property owners of Mentone have been dealing with this for years. Despite our sincere and persistent attempts to correct the situation, nothing has happened. So, LAFCO must disapprove the requested annexations and should deny these and all other such annexations or pre-annexations of Mentone by Redlands. LAFCO's own policy manual at page 121 says as to out-of-agency service contracts, and I quote, "In the case where a city or district authorized to provide water service has acquired the system of a private or mutual water company prior to the enactment of this legislation, those agencies shall be authorized to continue such service and provide additional connections within the service area of the private or mutual water company defined by the Public Utilities Commission or other appropriate agency at the time of acquisition without LAFCO review or approval as outlined in Government Code Section 561.33. The continue of service connections under this policy shall not be constrained by the sphere of influence of that local agency, provided that the area to be served is within the service area of the private or mutual water company previously defined by the PUC or other appropriate agency. This follows the law that although Government Code Section 561.33 provides that Redlands must obtain LAFCO's approval of its out-of-agency, that is, out-of-city limits, contracts. However, Government Code Section 4 also provides, and I quote, "This section does not apply to any of the following: an extended service that a city or district was providing on or before January 1, 2001. Thus, LAFCO's policy manual follows the law in existence before Measure U was enacted in 1997.
Excuse me, Jan,
Yes, ma'am.
your time is up.
Okay. You don't seem to have a huge crowd here today. I don't suppose you could indulge me another minute?
Well, the way that our commission policy is set up, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, if any of you have any questions about the balance of my text here, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any other members in the audience that would wish to speak at this time? Okay, we're going to close public comment and go on to consent items. We know that we have someone to speak on item 5. To my commissioner colleagues, does anyone else want to pull any items on the consent? Okay, let's have David come up. David Maya for item number 5.
Good morning, Commissioners. Last month, I came and spoke to you in regards to the Barstow Cemetery. I want to thank you all for taking action on what you did in regards to looking at the Barstow Cemetery, to your comments after my comment. Since then, this month, there's been a little bit of update at the Barstow Cemetery in that Mike had come to visit the cemetery at not the last meeting, but the meeting before that. He spoke and he let the board know that they were the possibility of doing a special review was possible. I believe that, in my belief is that that kind of put the board into an action mode. And as what ended up happening is they ended up dismissing the general manager that was there, and with the recommendation that we had made to them, chose to hire the 29 Palms general manager, Emily Helms, to come to Barstow for a 1-year contract to become a general manager consultant. In that time, this time that she's been there, she has changed the entire monetary, what do I want to say, billings and everything that she's doing. I mean, she's come in there and she's just, she's looking at the budget, she's done a review of the monies, and making several changes. So I know that you were stating that you possibly wanted to do a special.
Dave, excuse me, your time is up.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there, at this time, I will entertain a motion on the consent
I'll move it.
item.
I'll
You have-
second.
Okay, second. Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may. Yeah, I just want to comment on item 5. As I mentioned before, this item is personal for me because I have family actually at this cemetery, and I actually had a conversation with Supervisor Rao. I know that her and Supervisor Cook have put some of their discretionary money to try to make some improvements. And in my conversation with Supervisor Rao or Chairwoman Rao, based on the comments that were made today, that the new general manager is on a positive trajectory. It looks like things are going to improve. So I think for us as a board, we can kind of monitor it, and hopefully things get better, and anything we can do to try to offer input or advice to try to help this cemetery. And I know one of the things that are challenging the cemeteries is a former councilman. We had a cemetery in there, and they're very, very difficult financially to maintain because if you don't, the maintenance of them are very, very expensive. But, let's give this general manager an opportunity to grow, keep an eye on it. And I'm glad to hear that there's progress there. So congratulations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Baca.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I got the motion that Mr. Duper had motioned, but I didn't get the second.
Supervisor
Thank
Baca
you.
will second.
Thank you.
My question for Commissioner Baca, are you suggesting that we hold off on item 5, or are you okay with staff just monitoring the situation?
No, I'm okay with it, but I think Sam has a comment.
No, yeah, we'll just go ahead and move forward with this, and
Okay.
any updates as we move along, we'll include that as part of our review.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair,
Yes.
so in the sustainable staff report, the final recommendation is that it begin immediately. It's talked about November 22nd. I assume that's 23. You'll
Correct.
Come back, so there's just a typo in there.
Oh,
So we'll
yes.
be looking for a report in November.
Correct.
With that, it's It's fine with me. I think it's a good idea that we just get an update in November.
This is a real good project. Great. At this time, we'll have,
Okay. Commissioner Baca?
Buckeye.
Commissioner Bagley?
Yes.
Commissioner Cox? Aye. Commissioner Duper?
Yes.
Commissioner Farrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
yes.
Thank you.
All right, we have passed our consent item. That moves us to our public hearing item. Item 7 is consideration of the CEQA exemption and review of LAFCO service contract number 509. I will now open the public hearing for item 7 and have a staff presentation. I'm getting used to slamming things. This is good. This is good.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Item 7 is our usual out-of-agency service agreement approval. Whenever an agency provides service outside its boundaries, they have to come to LAFCO for authorization. So the City of Redlands has submitted an application for commission review requesting authorization to provide water and sewer service outside its boundaries. And this is to a single parcel, APN 0298-23106, which is located on the south side of Nice, between Nice Avenue, between Crafton and Sapphire Avenue. The property owner intends to build a single-family residence on the property, and in order to do so, requires at least water, but this is water and sewer in order to build the residence on the property. Therefore, the purpose of this service contract review is for the city to receive authorization from the commission to provide the services outside its boundaries. With regards to the services that will be provided, the city's application indicates that both the water and sewer facilities are in Nice, fronting the property, and therefore connection to the water and sewer lines will be through a lateral extension to the property. The city's application also indicates an estimated cost of about $21,000 and change for both the water and sewer extension. For environmental review, Commission's environmental consultant, Tom Dodson and Associates, has indicated that the review of the service contract 509 is exempt from environmental review, and his response is included as attachment number 3 to the report. In conclusion, the City of Redlands has, on behalf of the property owner, has submitted a request to provide both water and sewer service outside its boundaries in order for the property owner to build his residence on the property. Staff has reviewed this request to provide water and sewer outside the city's boundaries against the criteria established by commission policy and state law. The area, number one, the area is within the sphere of influence assigned the City of Redlands and is anticipated to become a part of the city at some point in the future. And staff has reviewed the area and supports the city's request to provide both water and sewer, since the city's facilities are fronting the property and there are no other service providers for both water and sewer in the area that can provide that service. So with that, LAFCO staff recommends that the commission approve LAFCO SC 509 by taking the actions on page 1 of the staff report, which is also on the display. Certified that LAFCO SC 509 is exempt from environmental review and file the notice of exemption within 5 days. Approve LAFCO SC 509, authorizing the City of Redlands to provide water and sewer service outside its boundaries to APN 0298-23106. And last but not least, adopt LAFCO Resolution 3378, setting forth the Commission's determinations and approval of the service contract. That ends my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Do any of the commissioners have questions of staff? You have a question? Go ahead.
Thank you. This was triggered by the public comment earlier, but I think it's germane to this particular. I was unclear about the interpretation that was expressed earlier, but it sounded like, and I don't know if this is true within our policy, that if we were to approve this property, surrounding properties that would make the same application or interest to Redlands would automatically be approved, or would those requests come into the commission again?
They will have to come into the commission.
They do, so that I misunderstood the public comment in this context. All right, thank you.
Are there any more questions?
Just a general comment, if I may, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I think everyone on this commission is understanding and sympathetic to the cause that the residents of Mentone have brought forward multiple times. And I would say I lean that way, and I understand that. However, in this particular case, it was the property owner that approached the city of Redlands for this. This is not outside the standard practice that most cities follow, and I did a little research during our intersession. Unfortunately, I also would feel like we were standing.
Excuse me, Commissioner Duper, can you speak right into the mic so we can make sure we hear you?
Okay, so I could put it in my mouth. I'm not sure. Again, I would be more concerned on the other side of potentially interfering with the property owner's rights in their request to have this done. So that was just my comment on the matter, that I am supportive of the community and I understand where they stand and what they want. But in this particular case, I believe it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Any more questions before we open up for public comment? Okay. Clerk, do you have any public comments?
None received?
Okay. At this time, I'm closing the public hearing on item 7 and bringing it back to the commission for deliberation.
Move approval?
Second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Please, let's start our vote.
Commissioner Baca?
Buckeye.
Commissioner Bagley?
Yes.
Commissioner Cox?
Aye.
Commissioner Duper?
Yes.
Commissioner Farrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes. Motion passed. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I also appreciate the people from Mentone. They come here every time to express those concerns. We hear them, but you can hear we have ministerial obligations that we have to meet also. And so I wish you well in the future, but it's beyond the scope of what we can do.
You are appreciated. Let's go to number 8. Item 8 is consideration review of the mitigated negative declaration prepared by the city of Loma Linda for the Canyon Ranch annexation as CEQA responsible agency for LAFCO 3259 and consideration of LAFCO 3259. I will now open the public hearing from item A and have a staff presentation.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. A little over a year ago, the city of Loma Linda submitted the application for a reorganization to annex this 141-acre substantially surrounded island. The reorganization includes the detachments from County Fire, its Valley Service Zone, and its Zone FB5, including County Service Area 70. This next slide is just an aerial of the reorganization area, and if you're familiar with this part of town, this is Barton Road on the north, and then this is Santa Mateo Canyon Road that turns into Nevada, and then this is the railroad right-of-way, and then these are just parcel lines that goes back to the city. Next couple slides are just bird's eye view of the reorganization area. This is looking south from the north east corner. Here is Taylor's Bar and Grill. It's been there for ages. We have some residential, and then we have a religious facility on the background and some residential. And this is the wellness center that was identified in the staff report. This is, again, a bird's eye view looking north. And this is some residential along Beaumont Avenue, and then the other religious facility on the background. And we have some abandoned agricultural in the center of the area. The primary reason for the annexation request is to provide services to two development tracks, tentative track 20403 and track 20404. This encompasses the Canyon Ranch project, and the two subdivisions have a total of about 126 single-family residential units. The city decided to move forward with the annexation of not only the area, but the entire substantially surrounded island, not only to address the proposed development and the services that the development will require, but also to clean up its boundaries by removing the entirety of that substantially surrounded island. I will now provide you with the information related to the four major areas of consideration when reviewing a reorganization proposal. With regard to boundaries, it is LAFCO staff's position that the reorganization is a logical boundary since it removes the unincorporated island in its entirety. And it also clarifies the boundaries between the cities of Redlands and Loma Linda along the Santa Mateo Canyon Ranch Road, and as well as Nevada Street south of Barton, which is an easily identifiable boundary for service delivery. The Commission is precluded from imposing conditions related to land use. However, we are providing you with information related to land use as required whenever you're reviewing a proposal. Again, this is just an area of the reorganization area. We have some residential, there are a couple of religious facilities, a wellness center, and some abandoned, vacant, abandoned agricultural lands. The county land use designation for the area is RL, rural living, and RL5, which is rural living, 5-acre minimum parcel size. The city not only has a general plan designation for the area, they also pre-zone their unincorporated sphere through the city's general plan update from 2006, along with the addendums that were done in 2009, addendum number 1, and the addendum number 2, which was done in 2021. So the city has a general plan designation of general commercial, low density residential, and very low density residential. As part of the approval of the project by the city, they had a general plan amendment to change the general commercial in the area, that is the area for the track 20403, from general commercial to low density residential. As mentioned, the city also pre-zoned their sphere to C2, which is general commercial, R1, and HR. 56377 requires that the commission consider policies and priorities regarding such conversion of that ag lands. By one, steering away from agricultural conversion unless the proposal would not promote a planned, orderly, efficient development of the area, or encourage development of existing vacant non-prime agriculture lands within the city and within the sphere before going out of the sphere. And so we believe that this can be justified based on the fact that the reorganization area does promote the planned, orderly, efficient development, since the area is, the proposal is eliminating the island in its entirety, and that the area has always been part of the city of Loma Linda sphere. It's been there for years. And so we think that that can be justified, the conversion of that prime farmland to non-agricultural use. The city's application includes a plan for service and a fiscal impact analysis that indicates that there will be a positive financial effect on the city. As required by commission policy and state law, the plan for service and the extension of the city's services will, at the very minimum, maintain and or exceed current service levels available through the county. For environmental review, the city prepared the environmental assessment for and a mitigated negative declaration for the Canyon Ranch annexation, which includes the general plan amendment, the pre-zone of that 11 acres, and the tentative tracks 20403 and 20404. As I indicated earlier, the entirety of the island was also pre-zoned through the city's general plan update from 2006 and their subsequent addendums number 1 and 2. Those have been made available to the commission. They were attached, there were links as part of the attachment number 3. And Mr. Dodson has indicated that if the commission chooses to approve LAFCO 3259, that the city's documents are adequate for the commission's use as a responsible agency under CEQA. Mr. Dodson identified the recommended actions related to environmental review, which is also on the display, certified that the commission, its staff, and its environmental consultant have independently reviewed and considered the city's mitigated neg deck for the Canyon Ranch annexation, determined that the city's environmental assessment and mitigated negative declaration are adequate for the commission's use as a CEQA responsible agency for its consideration LAFCO 3259, determined that the commission does not intend to adopt alternatives or additional mitigation measures, that these mitigation measures are the responsibility of the city and others, not the commission. And lastly, direct the executive officer to file the notice of determination. In conclusion, LAFCO 3259 was submitted in response to the development project within the reorganization area that requires municipal services from the city. And the reorganization not only includes the proposed development, but the entirety of the substantially surrounded island that provides for an efficient and effective boundary for service delivery. For these reasons and those outlined in the staff report, staff supports approval of LAFCO 3259. Before I outline the recommendations, I do want to identify a correction to the demographic information that was identified in one of the determinations and also on the resolution. This is just updated data that staff would like to include as an amendment in case if the commission moves forward with the approval. The city of Loma Linda should be commended for what they've done for the past almost 20 years, starting in 2006. They took care of their islands, the Peterson Island on Mountain View, just south of Redlands Boulevard. They also took care of the Bryn Mawr Islands And then recently they also annexed the island, the California island, which is just north of this. And this is actually the last island for the city, and that they are also annexing at this time. And so with that, LAFCO staff recommends that the commission approve LAFCO 3259 by taking the actions on pages 1 and 2 of the staff report, which is also on the display. We just discussed the environmental review actions. Approve LAFCO 3259 with the standard land LAFCO terms and conditions, include the hold harmless clause, and adopt LAFCO resolution 3379, setting forth the commission's determinations and conditions of approval related to this proposal. That ends my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any commissioners have any questions? And we've been joined now by Supervisor Hagman.
Yes, Sam, thank you for this, and I'm always learning something new. So the get rid of the Williamson Act overlay, is there any, you just have to meet those two criteria, you don't have to replace the land anywhere, you don't have to have so many acres?
If you look at the language, it says that if there is a preserve, we're just talking about the preserve here. There are no Williamson Act contracts. The preserve, so in order to put a contract, it has to be within the preserve. The law says in order to establish a preserve, it has to be done by resolution. And it also says that to disestablish a preserve, you do the same thing as how you had created the preserve. So the county, in essence, or the city has to disestablish or expand the preserve by resolution. The county has done this in the past, and we've seen a resolution. But the problem with the resolution, when they do a general plan amendment, it's like buried between all the other changes, and there's also there's always the person who used to do this before, retired, and whoever comes in doesn't really know what the procedures would be. And again, the county did it in the past, but we just don't have anything for this particular preserve area that it was disestablished by resolution. And that is why the city went ahead and did it themselves.
Which I'm good with. I think I'm getting a little bit confused between some of the Prop 70 lands I have where I'm, by legislation, I have to keep so many acres, and other preserves in Williamson Act where you could basically, there's benefits to have the preserve, but also you could take it away as progress goes, I guess.
So to create a preserve, it has to be 100 acres, but it doesn't say that if you diminish it, it has to be maintained with 100 acres. But the law says you have to, when you want to create a preserve, it has to be at the very minimum 100 acres. And then when you have your contracts in there.
And one follow-up question, I'm just looking at the maps and the diagrams. There's our residents and there are businesses already on that. So how do they get the preserve when it wasn't completely vacant?
That's exactly my point. There are no, in reality, the preserve is not there because there is no AP designation. But in paper, in the old map that we have, it still shows that as a preserve, and we don't have anything that disestablished it.
Madam Chair, just to comment on that, and maybe us as the county can consider this. I mean, this map was done almost 40 years ago. The 1985 map on the preserve. Maybe what the county could potentially do is go back and look at this map again, because it seems like it's another layer that every time someone wants to do development, it kind of has to go through this process, because a lot of these areas, let's just face it, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, we had a lot more ag in San Bernardino County. That's all been diminished. But I think maybe our land use director could take a look at reevaluating this map and coming back with a new map just to stop this layer. And we don't want to prevent any progress that could hinder any progress in our county.
Yeah, here's an example. So up in the northeast section, that is your donut hole. There is no AP designation in that area. But again, we don't have anything that the county officially disestablished. And when I say officially, as the law says, you have to disestablish it by resolution.
But this resolution was adopted by the county back in '85, right? This one?
When they created the preserves, this was back in the 60s.
Okay.
And through the years, if you were going to be changing the boundary of a preserve, you would take the action by resolution. And the county, we know that the county has done it because we've seen some resolutions in the past that disestablished a preserve, and that was in this in the vicinity here in Mentone. They changed the land use from AP to industrial.
What's the benefit to keep it AP, just besides keeping open space together? Is there?
So again, in order to have the Williamson Act contracts, so for example here, south of the reorganization, all of that is AP designation. And you have the county has a lot of properties there that have contracts right now.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
100 years ago, agriculture was a primary industry in this area. In the 60s, it was about 60 years ago when they created these agricultural preserves, we were starting to transition into that urbanization that was happening. In the 80s, I remember I was on the County Planning Commission, we were looking at this, we still had Williamson Preserve Act, we were trying to maintain the dairies. But my suggestion is, Sam, I don't really know where all these this map that you presented today from 1985 is very interesting. And maybe as a part of our service reviews, we can go back and look at where the old Williamson contracts were and the ag preserves as some sort of a mechanism just to bring the commission up to speed. But I see it's like this case, I have mixed feelings about this. I know there's a lot of emotional feelings, especially in Redlands, as the citrus was disappearing, that it was part of their lifestyle. But in 2023, we are in an entirely different economy and what's happening. And the low density, to fulfill our mandate in the preservation of open space and prime agricultural lands, I think it'd be a good idea if we just look at the totality of it. And I'm looking at this, the ag preserve, it actually looks like there's agricultural uses to the east that are not in the ag preserve. So there's just some funny holes in the way we're administering this whole thing.
Any more questions? Go ahead.
Sam, I was just wondering, I know that we're still engaged with the SALC grant contract and such. It's clear that this rezoning was done. The rezoning or the establishment and the disestablishment actually is outside the purview of the LAFCO Commission. However, anytime there's an annexation, that's when we do come in and have the authority to enforce the preservation of ag lands as one of our mandates. I'm wondering, I think we're, in this case, assuming that that was the correct process that was handled, that it was disestablished, but maybe not formally, and we might have lost it. But in the case where this wasn't the case, if they hadn't done that, would the SALC policy, SALC grant, or alternatives for mitigating the loss of agriculture apply in this case?
Well, not only that, the law requires us to transfer that. If this was a preserve, the law would require us to transfer that to the city. The city would have to adopt policies and maintenance and how they're going to take care of that preserve. The city does not have any ag within the city's boundaries at this time. So they really don't, and that's one of the reasons why
they don't have the capacity.
The city took the action to disestablish the preserve, is they don't even have ag in the city. Or they have ag, but they don't have ag designations in the city.
All right. Thank you.
Any more questions? I commend Loma Linda too on this. I think this is a step forward, and I agree with my colleague Bagley regarding how the economy is different. We've got mandates for RENA numbers, for housing. Everything has changed considerably, but I'm impressed with the ag on the east of that project. And maybe at some point we will have a chance to go through as a commission and look at all these different maps. There aren't any more questions. Do we have any public comments?
None received.
I'll move it.
Baca, second.
Motion and second, please do the vote.
Commissioner Baca?
Baca, aye.
Commissioner Bagley?
Yes.
Commissioner Cox?
Aye.
Commissioner Duper?
Yes.
Commissioner Farrell?
Yes.
Commissioner Hagman?
Hackman, aye.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye. That brings us to review, oops, I forgot. This motion is passed. That brings us to review and adoption of amendments to LAFCO Policy and Procedure Manual, Chapter 2, out-of-agency service contracts. Item 9 is review and adoption of those amendments. I will open the public hearing for item 9 and have a staff presentation.
Mike, I'm going to give this to Mike. Okay, good morning. So this is a follow-up item to last month. So in April, the commission considered amendments to its policy and procedure manual, and the commission pulled the out-of-agency service contracts relating in mass, but specifically relating to ADUs as a separate item. We returned at the July hearing, and we presented that item to you. And the consensus or tentative approval of the commission was for the ability of the executive officer to authorize services, specifically water and sewer, as it relates to new or existing ADUs for as long as the ADU is on a lot where a residence already exists. It is the practice of this commission that when staff presents substantial changes to the manual, and we consider this one to be a substantial change, that we present it to the commission for review first and then return at a subsequent hearing for approval. And that's if there's any changes from the commission at that time, then we can bring it into the next month. There was no changes from the commission for what staff presented, so we are here today. Art, slide please. And we are recommending that the commission take the actions that are outlined on page 1, memorializing its intent from last its intent from last month, or the last hearing. So that would be to provide staff with any additional changes, and then to carry out this through formal adoption of the amendment and to formally adopt the resolution. I'd be glad to answer any questions should the commission have any.
Are there any questions of staff?
Just a comment. I just want to say thank you, Sam, because this is, as we see more and more ADUs, I think this makes a lot of sense to streamline it. So thank you for taking those steps and get it out there. I'll move it.
Second.
Oh, before you do that, let me ask the clerk if we have any public.
None received.
Okay, now.
Still
Sorry.
move it.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner
Duper.
Hagman and was it Duper?
Duper.
Okay, Hagman, and then a second by
Supervisor,
Duper, right. And so, any further discussion? Seeing none, please do the roll call.
Commissioner Baca.
Buckeye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Yes.
Commissioner Cox. Aye. Commissioner Duper.
Yes.
Commissioner Farrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Hagman.
Hackman, aye.
Commissioner Warren.
Aye. Now it moves us to our discussion items. Item 10 relates to our year-end financial report for fiscal year 2022 to 23. I will now ask for the staff presentation.
I'm going to have this to Mike again. Okay, so this is the unaudited, underscore the word unaudited, financial report. Cash basis is what we're dealing with. And then we're going to be starting our audit in about 2 months. And hopefully around the January hearing, you'll be receiving your audit engagement review of the year. So as the practice of staff is to provide the commission with a summary of our finances, and those are 3 charts. Those are always on pages, usually on pages 1 and 2 of your financial reports. And then following that is a bunch of detail. So presenting for you summary today. So looking at the first chart, expenditures, 93% at the end of the year. And I will remind the commission that the commission did approve budget adjustments at the 3rd quarter, and that was related to legal expenses that were unrecoverable. So the budget did increase slightly for services and supplies, and we did not have to transfer any revenues. We balanced that by the additional gains that were made in the year. As for revenues, focus on fees and deposits, 93% of the budget. That is below goal, and I'll show you the breakdown below. We budgeted for 6 proposals and received 4. However, we are currently in the service contract business. As you're seeing, the ones that made it to the commission, we budgeted for 4 but brought in 11.
So there's a lot of activity going on with requests from private property owners for connections. And the administrative ones, those are the ones that go directly to Sam, as we just had a policy, but those are related to already existing units, like say like a septic failure or something of the such. But nonetheless, on a proposal basis, slightly below budget, or below budget, just make that clear. Slide, please. This is the one chart, if you only have to look at one thing, this is it. That's our cash at the top right, and then we minus all the reserves, so two types of reserves. Committed reserves, that is not our money. And then the assigned reserves, which has some play there. And then we take in accounts payable and any carryover of open proposals, because that also is not our money. And then we're left with this additional cash carryover. That's quite a nice number. So we'd have to explain it. Why is it so high? We usually bring in somewhere 30, 40,000 would be of the norm, or even a bit lower. So why so much? Well, we ended the year with appropriations and revenues, as I showed over there, but reimbursements received from the state related to the SALT grant is not in the budget. It's a separate activity that we have. And so staff's time, in addition to the receipt of the additional service contracts that we showed, have more than made up for the decrease in proposals for the year. So that is why we get to 122,000 roughly extra. SALT grant reimbursements for our time, and also reimbursement for any contracting work that we had to do, in addition to the excess service contracts. So this money will carry over into the fiscal year that we're in. It could pay for any of the unrecoverable legal costs that may occur throughout the year. So when we come with the first quarter report, the mid-year, and the third quarter, we will address this carryover and say, of this carryover that we brought in, this is what it's helped paying for that's not in our budget. And so hopefully we do not have to, it's not going to impact the budget. So we'll return at the first quarter and give you an update. That is the conclusion. Art, slide please. There is no action for the commission to take from staff other than note receipt of this report and file. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Just a comment? Great job. Go ahead.
I always have a comment, sorry. Sam, when you look at this budget, it's tight. So how often do you go out and reassess maybe the member fees or the fees that we charge to process things? Because you don't have a lot of room for, let me rephrase it another way. Do you feel you have enough resources to do all the scope that you need with your team on the frequency basis you like to do for reviews and stuff like that with this budget? And if not, is that something we should talk about in a future agenda item to figure out how to bring more revenues in to do what you need to do?
Yeah, at this time we are, and especially with the carryover, I think we're okay. And we can definitely bring this back to the commission to take a look at something.
Well, I'm just thinking that there's a lot of small special districts that need to be reviewed. Are we reviewing them enough? For the most part, what I hear from people trying to get these things done, the process, time is money for the ones trying to process. And so are you doing everything? That's the kind of review I need to do, to come back maybe at some point in the future, have recommendations. Hey, we're on the right path, or we could do more if we had this. This is how we could break it down.
We will definitely bring it back to the commission once we have a better understanding of where we're at. But at this time, I think we're efficient. We have the staff to do whatever needs to be done.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any more questions? Okay. Do you have any written comments?
None received?
All right. Well, although it said receive, I do have instructions that we're voting no, but we're not. Is that correct?
I was just
It's just receive and
Receive
file.
and
So if you
file,
just note
okay.
that you receive and file.
Okay, we're just going to note that we received and filed. Thank you. That moves us on to our informational items. We're going to start with item 14, the legislative update report.
Thank you again. I do not have a ledge report today. So I'm just going to move forward with the next item, which is the EO report.
Item 15, okay,
Item
thank
15.
you.
Just want to remind the commission that we will be having a September hearing. And then we're going to have actually a number of service contracts on that item. And we'll probably have an item to review the commission's policies related to 56133. And then in October, we will be dark for the LAFCO conference taking place at the same time. And then we will be back in November. So with that, that ends my EO report. Thank you.
Okay, item 16, any commissioners have comments? Okay, with no comments from our commissioners, it is my honor to serve as your chair. I thank you for your patience with my methods and my procedures, and I'm looking forward to serving your needs. And this meeting is adjourned.